We're going to throw it over to the interview where we have a great time. We're going to come back, and we're going to be so rejuvenated for Jimmy's Hot Takes. So right now, guys, we're throwing it over to Bruce LeVine. He is the co-host of the Dallas Stars radio broadcast. He used to broadcast here in Louisiana for the Ice Gators doing Chomp Time, if you guys remember that. He's won 8 Katy Awards for outstanding journalism and 1 Emmy, which has a great story behind it. So, guys, without further ado, Bruce LeVine. So welcome on to the show, Bruce LeVine, everybody. How you doing today, Bruce?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to people like you who love the game as much as I do.
Oh, man, and let me tell you something, man. We love hockey, and you're a big part of that, man. For people who don't know, Bruce was down here in Louisiana, and he did a lot of stuff for the Ice Gators, like Chomp Time. I know that's going to bring back a lot of nostalgia for some people. But before we get into all that, man, I just kind of want to talk to you, like, who is Bruce as a person? Like, can you give us a little insight as to who you are and where you've been and what you've done?
Who am I? Boy, that's a deep question to ask. That's just throwing out. Who am I? Well, these days I'm a 50-something-year-old father of 4 who spends a lot of time running around doing things to keep busy, which it's hard to explain. I'm happily married, and basically, I still, believe it or not, I still play hockey one day a week. I still go out and play a little bit. So
you still go out there and lace them up?
I still do. Once a week. Brett Severin, who does the Dallas Stars, he's a TV analyst, has a Friday skate. We call it the Nooner every Friday, 11:45, and we get out there and skate around for a couple of hours. So I still get out there. I'm not as good as I used to be, but I still have fun.
So would you consider yourself more of like if you had to compare yourself to any player on the Dallas Stars right now, who would you be most comparable to?
There is nobody. I have not assimilated my game to today's standards. Today's standards, it's all speed and skill. My game is not conducive to either of those. Basically, my game consists of getting the puck, giving it to someone else, and going hard to the front of the net and hoping the puck ends up there eventually.
That's how I like to play too, man.
Yeah, there's no speed or skill involved in my game. It's all strictly get the puck, go to the net. Because back when I first started playing, it used to be a skill to go to the front. I mean, you had to battle. You got cross checked. Mm-hmm. You had to be able to stand there and take it. Now the way the rules are in the NHL, you got 5'8" guys standing in front of the net because you're not allowed to touch them anymore. The game's changed a lot, so it's much different. But that part of my game has not changed. It's get the puck, put your head down, go to the net, and see what happens.
All right, man. Well, we're glad that you still lace them up, but you're more known now as a journalist. So we were kind of wondering here, what got you into journalism to start out? Like, did you start out like with print, or was it always just broadcast?
It was always broadcast. I started out at Channel 8 in Dallas, WFAA, way back when in the mid-'80s. When I got to Channel 8 back then, Vern Lundquist, who many of you know from his SEC football broadcast for over the decades, was sports director at Channel 8, and we had a great crew, so I learned a lot there. I mean, that was back when our news director at the time said our goal is to be the TV version of the New York Times, to break stories, be aggressive, but always be confirmed and right. It was more important to be right than first, so it was a little different. So that it was always broadcast. In fact, I did take one print journalism class in college, and I did not do as well as I thought I should have done. But back then, the teacher was an old newspaper guy, and he didn't like the way I wrote because I didn't write the newspaper style. So I guess it's always been broadcast in one form or another.
You won 8 Katy Awards, which is an award given to people in Texas for outstanding journalism, but I couldn't really find anything online showing like what specifically you won them for. So could you kind of give us a little bit of insight to those?
Well, several of them were for actually putting together a sports broadcast, but the two that stick out the most, people ask me the most about. One was for SMU, the SMU football scandal. Our station broke that story, and we covered it from end to end, and that was one award I won was the Pony Express, the end of the Pony Express, which, of course, everything they did back then is now 100% legal now. When you think about it, all the things that they were doing back then, now with the NIL rules, you can do it 100% now above board. Players go to the highest bidder. And the other one, which I guess the most talked about, was the coverage of Nolan Ryan's 7th no-hitter. Now, of course, this is a long time ago before you guys, but watching Nolan Ryan at age 44 throw a 7th no-hitter and be able to cover that was really a special moment in my TV career.
I wanted to ask you just real quick about the Emmy Award that you were nominated for, or did you receive that Emmy Award? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was for a show we did. It was about 1994. It was called Rewind, which was a look at 1994, the year in sports. It was a 30-minute special about a lot of Cowboys. And of course, that was when the Cowboys were sort of in their heyday with Emmett, Michael, and Troy. And it was a recap of the year that we put together and got nominated and won. And then the ironic thing about that was, at that point, I was on my way out of TV, going to go full-time transition to hockey. They actually mailed that award to the Ice Gators office.
Oh,
I didn't know I won it.
They just kind of surprised you, eh?
It showed up at the Ice Gators office, and I got a call. It's like, were you up for an Emmy Award? I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Hey, take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's like, well, it arrived at our office today. We assume it's for you. But at that point in time, I mean, I had totally transitioned out of TV mode and was 100% into hockey in Louisiana and the Ice Gators. So it was sort of like, okay, that's cool. I'll pick it up tomorrow. That was it. So I wasn't even there. I didn't see it be handed out. Don't forget, okay, you got to understand, TV journalism Emmys is different than what you see.
Okay.
It's not the primetime Emmys where you have all these stars and glamour. Yeah, no one's walking the red carpet.
Yeah.
On these things.
Yeah, they just sent it to the office, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. The funny thing is the station decides how much they want to spend to let people attend or not. It's like they have a budget. It's like, okay, we have people nominated. 5 of you can go because we're not spending any more than $6,000 or whatever it was to go. So it's not.
Did we lose you?
I think we lost.
You hear me?
There we go. There we
go.
go.
Back up and rolling.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say it's not like you're on the red carpet and here comes Zendaya walking down the carpet and you're like, oh my God, it's really it's just a bunch of TV people who like to pat themselves on the back. That's all it really was.
Hey,
so I didn't go. Yeah, I know, but TV people tend to do it more to themselves than other industries. So I wasn't even, like I said, I wasn't even there. I didn't know. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, this thing showed up. Actually, I think about it. Somebody might have mentioned it to me. Somebody might have called from Dallas and said, oh, by the way, you guys won. And I was like, whatever. I'm with the Ice Gators now. I don't care.
We'll just send it to the office.
Yeah, they sent it to the office, and I forget. I think the Rachel Foreman, who was running our office at the time, opened up the box, and it's like, is this yours? Like, yeah, I guess so.
That's awesome, man.
Well, Bruce, I heard you.
Well, the thing is, once you make the transition from your former life to your new life, you got to leave the former life behind.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And yeah, I mean, I do have the statue in my house. I mean, but it's not nearly as cool as my box of VHS tapes of Chomp Time.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to just go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Chomp Time?
Where do we start? The funny thing is when we first got to Lafayette, no one knew whether anyone was going to come to the games or not. We did not know if this was going to be successful or if the town would take to it. Mm-hmm. So we didn't know. And then all of a sudden we're selling out game after game. And somebody made this, Dave Berriman, our GM, basically someone made the suggestion, you should do a TV show. Like I guess back then, and probably still do, a lot of college football or college coaches have their own TV shows where you sit down in a room and you talk and stuff. And that was pretty much the genesis of it was, you guys are so popular, let's do a TV show. And that's how Chomp Time came to be. It was not in the plan when we first got there, but, as you know, the Ice Gators sort of took off and all of a sudden it's, hey, let's do a TV show. And that's how it happened.
I mean, I know for sure our youth hockey careers definitely started with the Ice Gators, man. It's just a big part of the Acadiana culture.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Bruce, this is Ian again. I'm actually what we would call an Ice Gators baby. So I was born in 96 and brought up with that whole crowd, and the fever pitch of ice hockey in Lafayette really took me by the heart and the heartstrings. So I was just curious, what was your most memorable or most talked about moment from that 96-97 Kelly Cup run with the Gators?
Well, you know what? That was a strange year because we started out great. And then it turned out that we had a player that was not – we had too many veteran players. So we went from – in a span of 24 hours, we went from 10-1 to 1-11. So that's what people forget about that team is that we had the first 10 wins of the season completely wiped out because of an illegal player.
An illegal player?
So we were too good and they had to make us bad is what you're saying.
Well, back then the ECHL had a rule that you could only have 4 players on a team who had played more than 200 pro games.
Wow.
And somehow through a clerical error or someone trying to fudge the system, I don't remember which, I'm pretty much guessing it was the second part, they discovered that we had 5 veteran players on the team. So the league looked at that and said, you know, you guys – you had an illegal roster for the first 11 games, so every win that you have is now negated. Every win that you have has been rescinded. So we went from first place to last place. We went from like 20 points to 2 points in a matter of 24 hours. Wow. So that entire season was a struggle to get ahead.
It sounds like a big battle for adversity right out the gate.
It was. There's a lot of things that stick out in my mind about that season and getting back into the playoffs and how great the team was. But there were 2 things that really, off the ice, were very memorable. One was after the semifinals, we won the first 2 games in Peoria, and we landed at the airport in Lafayette, and there were like 3,000 people at the airport to greet the team. The team hadn't even won a championship. The team had just won 2 games of the semifinals. Mm-hmm. And there were 3,000 people at the airport to greet the team as we landed. I don't know if any minor league team has ever had that kind of support where you haven't even won you haven't even gotten to the finals yet. And you've got thousands of people to see you at that, at the airport, which is pretty amazing. It was really weird because we lost in the next round to South Carolina. The team sort of ran out of gas. Our goaltender was a little more interested in still in extracurricular activities instead of hunkering down.
That's a very political way to put it.
Yeah, great, excellent, experienced way to put it.
I believe he went to a senior prom before Game 5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
And then he didn't last the first period.
Wow.
Wow. That's behind the scenes details.
We were down 3-0 when he got pulled.
Oh.
So that's one of the things you remember is you don't often hear, well, why did we fall behind? Well, the goalie was at the prom the night before. So that was memorable. But the entire year, just we still see each other all the time. I mean, that group still sees each other and talks to each other, and that was an amazing run. And a few months ago, the ECHL sent out their media guide, their record and media guide, which I'm still on the list to get. And it's funny, you go down the rabbit hole of, let's look at the attendance records for the league. And the Ice Gators in Lafayette still own the top 4 highest attended seasons in league history.
Pump the tires.
Pump the tires, man. Bring them back, man. We want them back, man.
Well, you know what? I'm sure people would love to come back, but, I don't know if it was because of, the fans got tired of it, but I was there at the end, and it sure was a night and day difference as far as support and buzz around the town from when we started to that last season where the league sort of took us over to keep from folding so we could finish the season and they didn't have to redo everything. So it was I don't know why, people got turned off from hockey. If it was just something they were interested in, then it went away. But I'm not sure you will ever recapture that time or that moment that we had from, I would say, from 95 to 2000.
It definitely was special, but I want to circle back to kind of your early years when you were working with the Cowboys. And it says, I'm looking at your resume here on LinkedIn, and it says you helped create and format and produce for the first live shows of the Dallas Cowboys training camp. Was that kind of like a Hard Knocks deal, or what did you guys do with that?
Well, that was a Channel 8. Again, that was Channel 8. And this is back before you could do live shots without any problems. Channel 8 decided that we were going to go live for 7 straight weeks from Dallas. And this is when the Dallas Cowboys had training camp in Thousand Oaks, California. So it's not like people you could just go back and forth. They decided we were going to do a live show from day one of camp to the last day. And this is back when NFL training camps were actually training camps. You know, guys did 2-a-days, and they, you know, it was an incredible amount of work compared to what they're doing now. I'm not saying they don't work hard now, but back then it was 6 weeks of camp, and it was 2-a-days every day, and they'd bring 100 people in for training camp, and you know, guys would be coming in and getting cuts. So it was a much different feel to it, but no one had ever been able to get day-to-day updates from the Cowboys. You know, usually the newspapers would have something the next day, or back when I first started, you know, they would ship videotapes from the air, you know, via airplane, and then you do the story the next day. So they bought a satellite truck and went out, and we did live recaps every night from Cowboy training camp, which is something that had never been done before. I mean, now everyone does it, but back then it's something that Dallas-Fort Worth had never seen. And, you know, that was when Tom Landry was the coach and Danny White was the quarterback. It was also the summer that the USFL folded and Herschel Walker signed. So it was a crazy 6 weeks. It was an absolute Too Tall Jones was on the team, Randy White, Tony Dorsett. It was, you know, it was sort of that was the last year that the Dallas Cowboys won under Tom Landry. That was the year before they had won the division title, and this was sort of okay, here we go. They thought they were going to have one last hurrah, and unfortunately things didn't turn out that way for the Cowboys. But being out there was an amazing experience.
And then Jerry Jones bought the team 6 years later. And then, man, it's been a ride for them for a while.
It sure has, and it's sort of funny that, you know, you thought when they won those Super Bowls back to back and then got back the next year that this was going to be the next dynasty. And, you know, actually the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, I was in Lafayette. That was when the Ice Gators were going on. And I lost a bet to Doug Shedden, who was the head coach of the Ice Gators. He was a Steelers fan. I picked the Cowboys, but they didn't cover. Oh. So I lost the bet.
Very unfortunate. Bruce, I was looking on your resume again on LinkedIn, and I noticed that you do a little bit of charity work for Relay for Life out in Plano and Richardson. Yes. I was wondering if you could give me a little bit more insight into that and maybe where our viewers could go to maybe possibly donate to the cause.
Well, actually, that's something that happens once a year. My wife started the Relay for Life edition in Plano. That used to be a 24-hour event where people would go out and there's a track and you would have somebody from your team at all times going around the track and you would raise money for cancer patients. And through my wife, I got involved and we had done a few years. Luckily, the Dallas Stars would donate some prizes, so we were able to auction those off and raise money. But it really was through my wife, Sherry, that I got involved with Relay for Life. And being somebody that has had cancer in the past, this really is a very near and dear charity to my heart.
Very nice. I am one to known to get behind a charitable cause, and of course, cancer has impacted almost every American in some way or form. So, is there any website or anything that we can go to kind of check out some more information about it?
I don't know when the next Relay for Life is. Things got a little bit crazy with COVID, and it hasn't been the same. But on my Facebook page or on my Twitter account, when it does come back up, I post a link as to where people can look and find and contribute to the cause. So when it does start back up, I will certainly post something. I'll let you know. I will let you know 100%.
So you guys heard it, man. Keep your eyes peeled on Twitter. We'll be monitoring Bruce's Twitter for that next relay, man. I wanted to talk to you about Chomp Time now. You know, that 96-97 team, that's the team we keep bringing up. You know, there's a lot of, like, big names, especially in Louisiana hockey, on that team, you got Ron Handy, Louis Dumont, Chris Valasevic. What was it like to kind of run that show and work with guys like that throughout the season?
Well, you got to understand that it's not only working with them, it's also you ride the bus with them, and they also let me practice with them. So it was a little bit different. I mean, it's a dynamic that I will never have again in my life. So it wasn't just, coming from like with the Cowboys or other things. You come in, you're an outsider. You're always on the outside, and you're reported, but you're not part of the group. This was an amazing group of guys, and we rode thousands of miles on the bus together and spent time together. So it felt more like family than it did being an outsider coming in and doing a TV show or doing the broadcast. Chris Valasevic, actually, he came up to Dallas last year. We had dinner. So we still have Louis Dumont. I saw him a few years ago. We're all friends on Facebook. So there's still the camaraderie. So even though it seems like you would just do it then walk away, no one really walked away from that experience not having a bond forever. Now, of course, the thing about Chomp Time is the players liked it. So they did help. I mean, whenever we said, hey, we're going to do this, they were always more than willing to accommodate and talk about or do whatever it is that we were asking. So it was a little more of a, it was more of a promotional tool for the team than it actually was, great sports journalism. But it was a lot of fun. And, Louis Dumont that year came in a couple of months in. No one knew he was going to be the all-time leading scorer in ECHL history, which is what he turned out to be. We knew Chris Valasevic was the best defenseman in the league, and that's something that, he's now in the ECHL Hall of Fame. And one thing about Ron Handy is when you needed something on game day, Ron Handy was there. He was clutch. You go back to the 95-96 season, the shootout goal that won the South Division title. When you needed something, Ron Handy usually knew how to get it done.
I can't speak for everybody out there, but I know for sure for me and Ian, Chris Valasevic, he was a big part of our hockey careers. I mean, we idolized the guy growing up, and he was just such a stud. And, getting that, hearing someone that was close to him say that he was just such a genuine person, like you just said, that's just awesome, man. So that just drives the bus even more from him being one of my favorite players of all time.
And he still lives down in Lafayette. He's still down there. So
really,
yeah, there's a bunch of guys who still live there. Jason McHewitt, Chris Valasevic, Ryan Shanahan's been a police officer in the Lafayette Police Department for almost 2 decades now. Joey Middlestead lives there still. Ron Handy lives there. So there's quite a few guys that went to Lafayette and never left.
Yeah, I see Louis from time to time, so I know he's still here.
Yeah, Louis is still there. His wife Haley, she's a native. So a lot of people stayed there and raised families and called it home.
So I got to ask you now, you just said that you rode the bus with these guys, you went on road trips with them, and you guys were like a family, and me and Ian, we've been in some crazy situations together. So have you ever been in what's some crazy stories that you have with being so close with the team?
Well, perhaps the craziest, there's a lot of crazy stories that happen. Things got pretty heated. The rivalries got pretty heated between us and Mississippi and some of the other teams in the South Division back in the day. And we won a game, and I believe it was the night that Stan Malonsky came off the bench and attacked one of the Seawolf players. And the GM for Mississippi called the police. It really was a very strange. But the fans of the Seawolves were so irate that they surrounded the bus. They were not going to let this bus go. And our bus driver pulled a gun.
Oh! Whoa! I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either.
Yeah, he did. I don't know if pulling a gun's the right word, but I believe he pulled his jacket back, showing that he did have he was exercising his Second Amendment right.
Yeah, there you go.
And if anyone was going to attack his bus, he might feel compelled to stop them from attacking the bus.
Oh my goodness.
Let's put it that way. So that's something I had never seen before. That is something that, and quite frankly, I've never seen it since.
You see how he phrased that, Burgy?
Yeah, very political.
You see how he phrased that? That was perfect,
very
man.
Smart, very smart.
That's a veteran in the business.
That story right there has got to be the most Southern sports story I've ever heard in my entire life.
We've had another crazy thing. It wasn't that season, but when New Orleans was in the league, the New Orleans Brass, we actually one game went to Pat O'Brien's.
Oh God!
and we left 2 players in New Orleans.
Oops.
They ended up down Bourbon Street or something, huh?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. Is the one thing I've learned about being in New Orleans is when they say the bus leaves at 3:00 in the morning, you better be on the bus because no one's really counting that well.
I got a quick question about that, Bruce.
Yeah.
With the whole Ice Gators and New Orleans dynamic, more recently, is that kind of the same situation with you guys in Dallas whenever they go up to Vegas?
I don't. Yeah, it's much different. It's so much different because the stars are multi-million-dollar athletes who are at the prime of their game, and their one job in life is to win hockey games at the NHL level. I mean, there is a lot expected out of NHL players. So they don't do that because of the level of which the professionalism. These guys are expected. They are big boys getting big money, expected to be where they are and do what they do. So it's a whole lot different than it was in the minor leagues where guys are sort of living for the moment and having fun. So it's much different when you talk about a Dallas Star. Like, for example, if a Dallas, of course, this is before iPhones, a Dallas Stars player goes on the road and calls a bunch of fans jerks at a bar, no one cares. Mm-hmm. Now with iPhones, if someone calls a bunch of fans get in your face and you call them bad names, someone's going to have video of it. It's going to be up on social media within 10 minutes. So it's a much different feel than it was back then. You've really got to be careful of what you do, how you're seen. I guess the best example of this is a story that Wayne Gretzky would never get on an elevator by himself. He always had to have a teammate or something because he didn't want any kind of even false information, false inference that something happened.
Always 2 sets of eyes, basically.
Yeah.
At all times, no matter what.
Yeah. Right. So it's a lot different now. These guys know that, it takes is one slip up and you're viral. You're the talk of the town. You're the talk of the world. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a good thing all the time.
So since Ian just brought up the Dallas Stars, I wanted to bring up their most recent successful season where they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Unfortunately, they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But what do you remember from that experience and how everything went?
Well, we didn't get to go to the bubble. Obviously, it was a much different. It is the weirdest Stanley Cup run in hockey history, and in a town like Dallas, where you're competing with the Cowboys and the Mavericks and college football at that time of the year, it was great to go to the finals, but it could not have happened under a worse situation. In the fact that first of all, COVID, everyone was locked down and locked in and just trying to get through the day. If it was a normal situation, and you guys lived in Lafayette when the Ice Gators made runs in the playoffs, well, imagine a city the size of DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, with 4 million people, and every other day, the most important thing going on after people got off work was a Stanley Cup playoff game. And it's huge. You've got people wearing jerseys around town, flags on the cars, all the talk about hockey. Because it happened in the bubble, there wasn't as much build-up, talk, fan excitement over it, and that's sort of tough. In that they played so hard that they really deserve to have, the organization deserved to have all the benefits that go with making a run like that to the finals. Obviously, the thing that sticks out more than anything was Game 7, second round against Colorado, where Yoel Kiviranta had the game of his life, scoring a hat trick, including the overtime game winner in Game 7. And he wasn't even supposed to be in the lineup because Andrew Cogliano had gotten hurt. So they threw Kiviranta in, and he had the game of his life. And that was when you're sitting there and you're covering it and you realize you're not supposed to root, but you sort of do because you want to get to keep going. But you realize that Game 7, next goal, whoever scores the next goal goes on. Whoever doesn't score goes home. And that happened to us the year before in St. Louis, where it was Game 7 against the Blues.
Maroon, man.
God, don't start.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Ben Bishop was heroic in that game. But Pat Maroon gets the game winner, and all of a sudden, you go from, all the excitement of we're one game away from playing for the Western Conference Final to okay, season over. See you next year.
Yep.
It's a very cruel way to end the season. It really is. Not that there's ever a good way to lose, but boy, it is just an absolute dagger.
Oh man. My girlfriend,
I can,
she's got to deal with me every year, just the finality of sports. And every year she's like, it's okay, babe. It's okay. It's just every year.
Well, the thing about hockey is, at least when you're working for a team like the Ice Gators, is when the season's over, you spend about 3 weeks saying goodbye to everyone. Mm-hmm. And it's usually 3 weeks of staying out till 2 a.m. saying goodbye to everyone. So and when you work for the team, it's much different, especially when you travel as much as we did, because I didn't have to be in the office. So it's a much, it's a goodbye, and then it's sort of a sad, it's a long Irish wake, so to speak, in the fact that no two teams are ever exactly the same. You know that when the season's over, there's going to be guys who leave who you never see again. So it's a little different. But when you talk about the finality of sports, it takes, in hockey, it takes one error, one mental mistake, one person to go look the wrong way or the puck to bounce the wrong way, and it's over. And like you talked about with Pat Maroon, that shot by Robert Thomas hits the post, could have bounced a million different ways. Instead, it hit the post and dies in the crease, and Maroon taps it in. Could have hit the post and gone into the crowd. Could have hit the post and gone into the corner. That's the finality of it. All of a sudden, you're one play away from moving on, and instead, you're going home. It's a very, you can get used to it. My wife, the first time she went to the Stanley Cup playoffs, it was 2014, and we lost to Anaheim in Game 6 after leading 3-1 with 5 minutes to go. And she came out when we were doing the show, and she was crying. And I'm like, what are you crying for? She's like, because we lost. I'm like, honey, you're going to have to get used to that because only one team wins the Stanley Cup every year.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a great way of thinking, man.
Yeah, you're going to spend a lot of time crying. If you're a hockey fan, only one team gets to end the year very happy.
Well, speaking of the Stanley Cup playoffs, obviously we're we're getting to the home stretch of things, and I'm just wondering what you think the Stars need to do to get themselves into a playoff spot.
Well, with the Stars, first of all, we need to keep getting great goaltending. Jake Ottinger has been fantastic as of late. He's been, he's only in the second year, and he was a first-round pick in 2017 because he was going to be the heir apparent to Ben Bishop. We just didn't expect Bishop's career to end the way it did with the injury. We need to have great goaltending, but also just as important, or maybe just more important, is we've got to start getting secondary scoring. Mm-hmm. Alexander Radulov has 2 goals this year.
Yeah, that's
Sagan's starting to pick it up, but we need guys like John Klingberg, who's doing great on the power play, has 1 goal this year. He doesn't have an even strength goal all year. So you need to have the guys that you expect to score start scoring. Sagan's picking it up now. Jamie Benn, would like to see a few more goals out of him, although he has had his moments this year playing with Sagan, which seems to be okay. Dennis Gurianov, you need more goals out of him. Right now, the Stars have that top line of Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski that pretty much night in, night out, you can count on being offensive and scoring. The Stars need some secondary. We play, including tonight, the next 12 games on the road. Mm-hmm. And as you know, on the road, the home team gets the final line change.
Right.
So what happens is the Stars' top line faces the other team's checking line and best defensive pairing every single night out, every matchup that they can get on the road. So when that happens, you need to have the other guys step up, score. Your power play has to get 1 goal. So for me, if it's one thing the Dallas Stars need to get in the playoffs to really be dangerous, is you've got to find those other guys to score. Forwards 1, 2, 3, we know we're going to score. What happens with forwards 4 through 12? It doesn't have to be the same guy every night. But night in, night out, you've got to find somebody else or some other line that's going to contribute and put pucks in the net, especially on the road, where it's so difficult to win in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So with the trade deadline looming, it's coming up, I believe, March 20-something. It's before our live show, I know that. But do you think the Stars will be making any moves to try to help supplement that scoring?
It all depends. This is going to be a cop-out answer. But the Stars between now and March 21st, as you said, have a predominantly road schedule. If we get to March 21st or thereabouts and the Stars are in the 8th spot or the 7th spot or hanging around for the playoffs, I think they will try to find something. They're going to make some kind of move to get over the hump, make the playoffs, and see what they can do. In 2019, they traded for Matt Zuccarello. which turned out to be a great trade. We only had him for 2 months, but man, and he broke his arm for one of those months. But boy, when he was on the ice, he was dynamic and made us a better hockey team. I could see that happening. If the Dallas Stars are not in the mix, if something goes horribly wrong and we crater in the next 3 weeks, it could be the beginning of a fire sale and the end of the Dallas Stars core as we know it right now.
For sure, man. And, we just got, I believe, just 2 more questions for you, man. You mentioned you had 4 kids, right? And I'm assuming I kind of did a little bit of research, too, on this. I saw one of your other interviews with some lovely ladies in Texas, and you said 3 of them are in college. Now,
yes.
Do you push any of them to kind of pursue journalism, or are you just letting them do their own thing?
First of all, I push them as far away from broadcasting as possible.
That's the answer I wanted.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm not trying to be flippant about this, but if you want to broadcast, it's like what you guys are doing. You can do a podcast, you can write blogs, you can do a number of things that get you the experience of and the reps of being in broadcasting. You want to, like your podcast. Every day you do a podcast, you get better at it, right?
Correct.
So, but, for example, and this is, again, going back to the old days, you talked about that professor I had that was a newspaper writer. Well, half the people I went to college with, more than that, like 3/4 that were in journalism, all wanted to work for a newspaper someday. Well, that's not really a viable option these days. Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. So I really would tell them, if you want to be in broadcasting, broadcast. Find a way to do it. Go do what you got to do. Go be, do a podcast, do a blog, do a video, do videos, do whatever you can. Go into the stands at a high school game and practice play-by-play if you want to do that. There are ways you can do this. But it's nice to have a business degree or an accounting degree or a finance degree or something that can back up just in case the broadcasting world continues to evolve in a way that is not as, shall we put it, financially rewarding as it used to be.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put
if anybody wants to do it, my stepson, he does a lot of streaming. He's a gamer and he streams 2 or 3 times a week. You don't need a college degree for that. You want to do it? Be good at it. Go ahead and do it. That's what I'm saying. But I would really say that getting a radio TV degree is not, in the long term, the best way to go. If you want to broadcast, broadcast. Find a way, get it done, do it. But I would not say that it would be a long-term great idea, because this industry, especially with the internet, is evolving so much. For example, if you would have told me 30 years ago there's something called an influencer, I mean, who are influencers 20 years ago?
Yeah.
These are people, now you've got people who are quite famous for doing nothing. What do you do? I'm an influencer. Well, how did this person become an influencer? I mean, how is this person who doesn't do anything getting paid to post stuff on Instagram when they actually haven't done anything in the world?
Exactly.
Things change. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is things change. But again, going back to the day, Michael Jordan was an influencer. Well, why was he an influencer? Because he was the best basketball player on the planet. Mm-hmm. Wayne Gretzky was an influencer because he was the best hockey player on the planet.
Steve Yzerman was an influencer.
Right, because these guys had done something.
Yep.
I take a lot of pictures and people think I'm cool, so, so you don't know what's next. So I would say get something that at least, if you want a minor in radio, TV, or broadcasting or journalism, that's fine. But make sure you have something just in case this industry continues to evolve or devolve in a different direction where it's not so, it's you have something just in case.
All right, man. Before we get to the last question, they just slid me the note that we wrote down. We wanted to thank you personally, on behalf of Lafayette Hockey, for not only making the game fun, but teaching us the game as you made it fun. So on behalf of Lafayette Hockey, man, we appreciate everything you've done for us.
We may not be playing hockey if it's not for Bruce LeVine.
And Chomp Time, yeah.
And
Chomp Time, man. And Ice,
I just rode the wave. The team was the one. I just rode the wave.
But you were a big part of that. Don't try to diminish what you've done. You were a massive part of everything.
I enjoyed it immensely. And actually, we used to do clinics. And I remember there was a lot of people playing inline back when this Ice Gators first started. And I know they had summer camps there, and people. I still see people run into people that started playing hockey because of that. And I wish that it had stayed. I wish it had been more successful, but maybe someday there'll be a second wave.
And when I told people we're interviewing Bruce LeVine, they were like, "You're interviewing?" Like their eyes like lit up and they got excited. Like they haven't heard that name in ages, but they still love you for what you've done. So again, just thank you for everything you've done for Lafayette hockey, man.
Well, I appreciate it, and it was one of the greatest times of my life. And it's some great memories and some great times. And someday I'll write a book and change the names to protect the innocent.
All right, and now we've arrived to the last question, man. And this question is a fun question, but it's been a debate amongst us and our friends, and we've even had it on the podcast. Uh-huh. You have to pick one here, Bruce. Peanut butter and jelly, or grilled cheese.
Grilled cheese.
Thank you for everything, Bruce. You are absolutely electric. We enjoyed our time with you. We appreciate you taking time out of your day here to be with us, Bruce.
We really do appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, thank you so much,
you guys. I appreciate you having me on, and give my love to everyone in Lafayette. It was a great 4 years, and I still have a picture on my wall, a picture of the year that the Ice Gators were the Grand Marshals of Mardi Gras.
Oh man, and it's Mardi Gras season, so we could use that, man. We'll definitely have. We need that picture, and we'll put it up on the video that we got here.
It's a picture, and it is something that I will never forget as much as I can remember. That was our first Mardi Gras. I don't know if you remember this. You probably, if you were born in '96, you don't. But we had Mardi Gras. We were the Grand Marshals, and the next day we lost 13-2.
Oh my God!
Well, you know what? At least you got an excuse, right?
It was Mardi Gras, man.
And we had guys trying to get kicked out of the game because it was just so messed up from the night before. And the press went in and asked, "What happened?" And the quote from our head coach was, "We got Mardi Gras."
Oh man, that is actually awesome.
And that was the best butt kicking we ever had, and for a good reason.
Well, again, Bruce, we appreciate you hopping on with us, brother. We hope you have a great rest of the day. And again, thank you for everything, my man.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, take care, guys. Thank you for having me on.
You have a good one.
Bye-bye.